great pleasure to be with you today, this afternoon. I know there are people from all over the world who are joining us, so I'll try and avoid talking about this afternoon too much. Yeah, Leo has said my background's in sport and exercise science. I've been very lucky over the years. My first job, for those of you that are following the European Soccer Championships at the moment, was as head of human performance for the English Football Association, and very soon after starting I found myself as the fitness coach for the England team at Italia 90, where England progressed to the semi-finals of the World Cup, quite an iconic tournament, and thereafter been very fortunate to have worked with many top sports people, advising them on their exercise, advising them on diet, and at the same time conducting research into the area of sports science. And my particular interest is really in the application of sports science and sports nutrition to performance. I love doing stuff that I can genuinely talk to people about that can help them improve their lives, improve their performance, improve their health and well-being. So it really is a great pleasure to be invited to talk to you this afternoon about a topic that I really love and around, I think in a sense, a passion about how exercise can be used not just with people with sarcoidosis, but for all people as a form of prevention of illness occurring, but also as a form of treatment to help people live healthier and more active lives, regardless of what condition they may have or what their background might be. So I'm going to talk sort of for half an hour, 40 minutes or so, looking forward to the panel discussion later, looking forward to taking any questions that you may have, and hopefully trying to impart a few ideas and a few thoughts that will help those of you with sarcoidosis, or those of you who are looking after people with sarcoidosis, to realise that, as Dr. Kidd said, lifestyle change, lifestyle management, behavioural change really can have an impact on your way of life. And it's a great way of, in a sense, getting back to normal and showing that you can stand up to sarcoidosis and get on top of it and really control the way in which you live your life. So, Leo, if I could just have the next slide, please. My current role actually isn't in academia. I'm the chief executive of a large global educational charity, which I thoroughly enjoy doing. We're helping to transform the lives of young people who can get access to UK universities. But at the same time, I'm also a visiting professor at the University of Suffolk, and have been fortunate to have worked with the team at the University of Kingston in London and been encouraging them to do some specific research into sarcoidosis and exercise. And what we've done is to conduct a review study of all of the scientific literature that currently exists relating to sarcoidosis and exercise. And I really want to thank the team at Kingston, Dr. Hannah Moore and her colleagues, Dr. Swan, Dr. Morton Holmes, for all of their hard work. We currently have a manuscript that's been submitted for review into an academic journal, and I'm very hopeful that that manuscript will be published as a paper, and we'll be able to share the findings, again, which are very practical, to you and to other people with an interest in sarcoidosis. So really, for the first time today, I wanted to present the headline findings, and they genuinely are the headlines. There's some of the key things that we found, many of which, in fact, probably won't be a surprise to you. But what I've then tried to do is to take those findings and translate them into some practical advice and some practical thoughts on how we can incorporate exercise and healthy nutrition into lifestyles to help in the treatment, management and control of sarcoidosis. So if I could have the next slide, please, Leo. So what I'm going to do to start with is to focus very much on the research that we've conducted. I'll talk about exercise and sarcoidosis, but I'll also kick off with a little bit of a description, a background into what happens to the body when we exercise, because my former professor when I was at Loughborough was always very keen to instill into me the need to understand the mechanisms. And whilst I'm not going to go, you'll be pleased to know, into a detailed physiological talk this afternoon, I will give you an overview of how the body operates when we exercise, and that I think then gives us a better understanding of how we can use exercise to combat many of the symptoms of sarcoidosis. I'm then going to talk about nutrition and sarcoidosis, and hands up, there hasn't been a great deal of research in this area. I know we'll be talking about future areas for research and what we want to do going forward later on today. What I've done is taken my knowledge of nutrition and applied that to sarcoidosis. And I think we've done pretty well today. We're about an hour and a half into the session, and I don't think anybody has yet mentioned COVID-19. So I think the first to do so. I thought it was only right today to just try and blend some of what I'm talking about regarding exercise and nutrition into COVID-19, helping to protect the body against COVID-19, particularly if you have sarcoidosis. So Leo, if I could just go on to the next slide, please. One of the things that I always say to students and to people who I'm talking to is that our bodies are designed to exercise. It's very easy to forget that our ancestors, many thousands of years ago, had to exercise to get their food. They had to run to catch prey. They had to walk to gather in crops. Exercise was a fundamental part of their lifestyles. Indeed, they often had to run even faster than their prey if they wished to avoid being the food of the prey. So we have evolved physiologically as human beings for whom exercise is fundamental to what we are and what we do. I think, unfortunately, lifestyles have intervened, and for many people, exercise has no longer become a fundamental part of our lives. We see the advent of computers, of cars, of transport systems, even remote control buttons that mean that we don't even have to stand up to change the television channel anymore, have really taken exercise out of our lives. So as a global nation, we do far less exercise than we ever used to. And of course, if you don't exercise and you have a condition such as sarcoidosis, then as I'll say a little bit later on, that can really compound things and make things even worse. So if we just move on to the next slide, Leo, I've got 2 or 3 slides where I'm just going to talk in very basic terms about what happens to the body when we exercise. So sitting here as we are today, listening to the talks, we'll be breathing, probably taking 10 or 12 breaths a minute, and probably 12 to 15 litres of air going into our lungs. Of that air, about 1/5, 20.9%, is oxygen. And it's that oxygen that is absolutely critical to the functioning of the body, because within the lungs, and the lungs subdivide into a myriad of much finer channels, and right at the very end, there are little air sacs that we call alveoli. And within those air sacs, the oxygen that's in the air diffuses across the very thin membrane of that air sac into the blood, but more specifically into the hemoglobin in the blood, which is the oxygen carrying component of the blood. Then that blood is pumped around the body by the heart. And when I talk to people about exercise, and you often say, well, you know, what's the most important muscle to develop? Is it my abs? Is it my calves? Is it my quads? Is it my pecs, my shoulders, and so on? Actually, the most important muscle in the body is the heart, because without a good and healthy heart, it's very difficult to perform exercise effectively and to function properly. The lungs are a critical organ because we need to have the lungs in good shape to get that air into the lungs, to get oxygen from the alveoli into the bloodstream, and then the pump, which is the heart, is pumping that oxygen around the body. And we see some phenomenal changes in the body when we exercise. Heartbeat at rest, probably around 60 or 70 beats per minute, can get close to 200, even 220 beats a minute when we exercise. The ventilation rate, the amount of air that goes into the lungs, as I said just now, 10, 15 litres of air per minute at rest, anything up to 100 to 150 litres of air, even in some top athletes, close to 200 litres of air per minute going in and out of the lungs. And if you think about how long it takes you to put 50 litres of fuel into your car, and you think that the lungs can take in and out 100 to 150 litres of air per minute, that just shows you how incredibly powerful the lungs are. And even the heart, when it's beating maximally, can beat about 30 litres of blood around the body per minute. So our organs, the heart, the lungs, really are designed to exercise and have the capacity to exercise at a very high level. Now, when we take oxygen into the bloodstream, we transport it around the body predominantly to the muscles, where it combines with the fuel, the energy in the muscles, particularly carbohydrate and particularly fat, to help us to exercise. Now, again, at the moment, sitting around at rest, we're probably using about 3 millilitres, 3 mils of oxygen for every kilogram of body weight that you weigh. I was watching Sir Mo Farah last night run 10 kilometres in about 27 minutes and 40 seconds, just a bit too slow for him, sadly, to qualify for the Olympics. He has the capacity, when he's exercising, to transport something in the region of 80 millilitres of oxygen per kilogram of body weight to his muscles. So you have a range, a continuum of between about 3 at rest up to about 80 millilitres of oxygen per kilo of body weight per minute for top athletes. We all sit somewhere on that continuum. And when you move from sitting to standing to walking, you will use more oxygen. Your ability to do exercise depends on how much oxygen you can get through that transport system to the muscles. And really, in order to function effectively, and I'll come on and talk about this a little bit later on, you probably need to be transporting 15 to 20 millilitres of oxygen per kilogram of body weight to your muscles in order to stand up, walk around the house, walk to catch the bus, push the lawnmower around the garden. That's the sort of value that you need to have a reasonably active lifestyle. The moment your value starts to drop and gets closer to 10 or below single figures, then the ability to function effectively and have a good lifestyle does tend to decrease quite significantly. So the heart pumps the blood full of oxygen around the body. You can see, looking downwards from top to bottom, the big red vertical artery that's pumping blood rich with oxygen around the body. Next to it is a blue vein. That signifies blood that's used or given up its oxygen to the muscles, being pumped again by the heart back into the lungs, where it reloads up with oxygen to start that journey again. And that really is the cardiovascular system, the system that gives the body the energy that it needs through the supply of oxygen to take part in exercise. Next slide, please, Leo. But of course, in order to make the muscles work, to make us function effectively, as Dr. Kidd has spoken so eloquently about earlier today, we have to have a neural pathway, a nerve system that helps us to do that. And so there are nerves running from the brain down the spinal cord to the muscles that combine with that energy production process to help us to function, to help us stand, to move, to talk, to help with all the functions that the body needs to stay healthy and active. So that nervous system is critical, because without the nervous system, even if there is a supply of healthy blood with oxygen in it and a good supply of fuel in terms of carbohydrate and fat, then without the nervous system, we can't perform as well as we should do. Next slide, please, Leo. And ultimately, movement is all about the movement of our muscles. Normally, the contraction or shortening of a muscle, the muscles will be attached to the bones through tendons and ligaments. That contraction of the muscle will then stimulate movement. So we've got the muscles that are getting a supply of oxygen. They've already got a supply of fuel, the carbohydrate and the fat, and then with the nerves as well, that's how we function and that's how we move. So that's what our body is very much designed to do. And we know that with muscles, for example, if we stimulate them and they do exercise, we can get the muscle size to increase. The muscle fibers get bigger through the laying down of protein within the muscle fiber. That makes the muscle bigger and stronger. But also, if the muscles don't do a great deal of exercise, they what we call atrophy, they lose protein, they get smaller and they lose strength. And one of the things that I've seen over and over again over the years is that the body is a very elastic system. Elastic in the sense that it will grow and develop and respond and improve to the stimulus of training, which is absolutely fantastic. We can see how training at whatever level you start, or exercise at whatever level you start, can help you improve, get greater muscle mass, improve your oxygen carrying capacity, improve your physical function. We know that exercise will stimulate that, but at the same time, if you stop or you reduce the amount that you do, then unfortunately everything regresses and the body gets worse and worse. So you can't store up the fitness and the health that you gain from an exercise program and hope that it's there for ad infinitum. Unfortunately, as we all know, it isn't. So that's really a brief overview of exercise, and I would stress that it is a very brief overview, and I've probably just encapsulated at least one or two terms of first year physiology classes into 3 slides, but it just gives you an overview, a feeling for the mechanisms that are involved when we do exercise. So if I could have the next slide, please, Leo. What I now want to do is to start to focus a little bit on the findings of the research that we conducted with the team at the University of Kingston. And we reviewed almost 2,000 people with sarcoidosis. And we found that of those 2,000, the vast majority have unfortunately reduced physical activity. And whilst we know that many people's physical activity reduces with age as they get older, the rate at which people with sarcoidosis decreased their physical activity was even greater. So we were seeing people with sarcoidosis doing even less exercise than we would have expected compared to non-sarcoidosis patients of the same age. We also saw that people with sarcoidosis have reduced muscle strength. The muscles have atrophied, as I said, the strength of the muscle has decreased as a result, again, of a lack of exercise, and that happened at a greater rate than we would have expected with age. There is a condition called sarcopenia, which is in a sense a natural decrease in muscle strength as people age. We saw even greater sarcopenia with people with sarcoidosis. Those combined meant that we saw with a much reduced exercise capacity in people with sarcoidosis compared to non-sarcoidosis patients. Not surprisingly, they had deconditioned, and as I'm sure many of you will be aware, they had higher levels of fatigue as well. So higher levels of fatigue despite doing less exercise. Now, in a sense, many of these things are not a great surprise, but it was really for us to quantify that, and we were, I suppose, in a sense, disappointed that what we had suspected to be the case actually was proven to be the case. Much more deconditioning, greater fatigue, much reduced physical activity, and reduced exercise capacity in sarcoidosis patients. Back to the next slide, please, Leo. Something that Dr. Kidd alluded to is really what comes first. Is it a lack of physical exercise just because people have sarcoidosis that causes the decrease in fitness, or is it the sarcoidosis itself that is causing that decrease in fitness? And it's a very difficult one at the moment to untangle. We're not quite sure what has come first. But if I could just move on to the next slide, please, Leo. The really good news that we found in the studies which had looked at people with sarcoidosis and then placed them on exercise programs was that we found that all of the areas where we had seen large decreases actually improved. And that's really good news. It's a really positive finding. So going back to my slide 4 or 5 slides ago, that oxygen transport capacity was significantly improved in people with sarcoidosis who exercised. We saw that sarcoidosis patients could increase their muscle strength. There was no barrier to increase muscle strength. Combined, that increased exercise capacity, and really importantly, despite the fact that they were doing more exercise, reduced levels of general fatigue. That malaise, that sarcoidosis fatigue that I'm sure many of you are aware of, decreased to a large extent with exercise. And really importantly, improved quality of life, getting back control of your life as a result of exercise. So we saw through our assessment of all of these studies that exercise really was able to fight back against sarcoidosis, and that there is no barrier to the improvements in physiological capacity that we see in non-sarcoidosis patients in sarcoidosis patients. You can still get the same improvements as anybody else, and I think that for us was a really positive finding from the research that we conducted. If I move on to the next slide, please, Leo. I've talked about exercise, obviously, and one question that I've probably been asked more and more times over the last 30 or 40 years is what type of exercise is good for me? Now, my response to that is on a number of levels. Firstly, there is really no bad form of exercise. Secondly, it really will depend on you as an individual, and I'll come back and talk about that over the next 2 or 3 slides. The type of exercise that works for one person may not be the right type of exercise for somebody else. So I'm not going to sit here today and speak specifically about a particular type of exercise that may be beneficial. We can perhaps touch a little bit more on different types of exercise later on this afternoon. But for me, there is no bad type of exercise. It's an exercise that is right for you. And most importantly, it should be exercise that is enjoyable, something that you enjoy doing, something that you're happy doing, something that fits in with your lifestyle. And bear in mind as well that whilst exercise at a high intensity, which I'll talk about again in a second or two, might need to be quite high if you're already physically fit, if you're somebody who has done little or no exercise, then even walking around the garden, walking to the shops is a great form of exercise for you. So there's no wrong type of exercise. It needs to be enjoyable. I think over recent times, we've seen group exercise becoming more and more popular. And I would certainly encourage you, even within your sarcoidosis groups that I know Jackie was talking about earlier, to see whether group exercise for sarcoidosis patients really does work, because exercising together is incredibly motivational. You keep each other going. And we've seen with all the growth of exercise classes and online exercise classes, particularly in the last 15 months, that type of exercise is really beneficial. And I would always advocate exercising with a friend, with a partner, is also a great way of keeping yourself going with your exercise, because we don't want people to start and then stop because they're getting bored, they're getting fed up, or they're finding the exercise that isn't really right for them. Next slide, please, Leo. Next question I'm often asked is, how tough, how hard should exercise be? And I'm afraid there is a category of thinking that says that exercise that isn't painful isn't good for you. That's total and utter nonsense. And I'll go back to my former professor at Loughborough, who used two words that I still repeat today, and that is that exercise which is good for you should be at a level which is of tolerable discomfort. That is not exercise where you are in pain, where you're sweating buckets, where you're finding it really tough, nor should it be exercise where you're hardly giving any exertion. Something that you can just about cope with, hold a conversation, isn't really giving you any pain, is a great way of exercising. That's about the right sort of intensity of exercise. And certainly no pain, no gain, which is an adage that I'm afraid has been bounced around by many fitness trainers in the past, is not one that I would subscribe to. So tolerable discomfort, and if anything, looking at that slide, turning the dial more towards the left than the right is a way of getting the exercise intensity at a level that will still be doing you good, but not causing you pain and discomfort to a level which will make you think twice about going out and exercising again on another occasion. Next slide, please, Leo. How long should exercise last? Well, again, I'm afraid there is no simple answer to that, because for me, if we set guidelines, and I'm very aware that in the media there are guidelines around exercising for 20 or 30 minutes a day and so on. My view on that has always been that if you set a specific time and you don't achieve that, you'll almost feel as if not achieving that time means that the exercise hasn't been good enough. That's absolute nonsense. For me, even exercising for 2 or 3 minutes, if you've not exercised before, is a massive breakthrough. And I know we've had one of our sarcoidosis patients in the UK who's raised a huge amount of money by just walking what might on the face of it be seen to be a relatively short distance, but for her was a massive achievement. So again, that comes back to the fact that the length of exercise that you do really is dependent on your starting point. And by starting slowly, by starting for a short length of time, 1, 2, 3 minutes, and building up gradually over time, you're doing yourself as much good as somebody who is an exercise person who perhaps finds it no problem to exercise for 20 or 30 minutes, but then builds up from that foundation instead. So I'm not going to specify how long, because it would be wrong to do so, but anything is better than nothing. Leo, next slide, please. So how often should exercise occur? And again, I come back to the point I made in the last slide, that if we read some of the guidelines, which say 3 to 5 times a week, that suggests that 1 or 2 times a week is not enough. So I'm not going to say and specify how often exercise should be. If you aren't somebody who exercises once or twice a week, is going to be far more beneficial for you, particularly when you start exercising, than doing no exercise at all. My plea would be, make exercise part of your daily life. Make sure you walk where previously you may have not done any walking. Make a conscious effort to take part in an exercise session if you don't do so already. Use the stairs instead of lifts when we're able to go back into offices. And even if you are using public transport again one day to go to work, get off a stop earlier and walk to the office or walk to your home. Bring exercise back into your lives, just as I said our ancestors used to do many thousands of years ago. So I think for me, it's regular exercise. It's not specifying a length, a duration, or a frequency of exercise, but it's making sure that you have exercise as part of your life. And as I said, our research has shown very clearly that for sarcoidosis patients, there are real tangible benefits to be gained from getting back control of your life, from managing the symptoms, and for getting a quality of life and less fatigue that is way better than you would have done were you not to have exercised. So next slide, please, Leo. My conclusion on exercise is any form of exercise is great if it works for you. We're not all elite athletes. In fact, very, very few of us will ever be elite athletes. We all need to exercise at a level, a frequency, and a duration that is right for us. And anything is better than nothing. And as I said, the research that we conducted through Kingston University has shown without any shadow of a doubt that exercise is beneficial for you, and it will help to combat and offset the symptoms of sarcoidosis. Next slide, please, Leo. When it comes to exercise, as I say, it's a blend of exercise. It's a blend of resistance exercise to develop muscle strength and cardiovascular exercise to develop the heart, the lungs, and the oxygen transport capacity. And if you do that, I am absolutely confident that your quality of life will improve and you will be able to cope with the symptoms of sarcoidosis far more effectively. That's my last slide on exercise. If I could have the next slide, please, Leo. What I want to do now is talk reasonably briefly about nutrition and refueling. Next slide, please, Leo. One comment that I make very frequently to anybody I talk to is that the human body is a little bit like a high-performance car. You can have the best car in the world, but if you put the wrong fuel into it, it won't perform properly. And the body is the same. If you've done all the right sort of exercise and you're looking after yourself correctly, if you don't fuel properly, you won't perform as well as you possibly can. So I'm a big advocate, whoever you are, whether you are somebody who just exercises for fun, or in terms of looking after your body and staying healthily, fueling properly is absolutely critical. So could I have the next slide, please, Leo? Some general principles, and I won't get into too much detail, but I will just give some general principles around good nutrition. We have what's called macronutrients: protein, fat, and carbohydrate. A good mix of those three, and I'll talk about each one individually, is absolutely critical. Alongside that, fresh fruit and vegetables to provide us with the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients that we need. Maintaining energy balance is also important. What do I mean by that? Well, when we consume food and drink, we take in calories. If we take in more calories than we expend through exercise and activity and through our general metabolic function, if we take in more than we expend, then that energy has to go somewhere. And sadly, it's stored around the body, usually as fat stores, and our body weight will increase. So maintaining energy balance, energy in equals energy out, is absolutely essential if we're to retain a good body weight. Staying hydrated is also important. The body needs to stay hydrated for the body to function properly. But the other point that I would make is it's very easy to walk into a pharmacy, into a supermarket, or go online and see supplements advertised everywhere to help you with your diet and your health and fitness. I'm a massive believer in diet coming first and supplements second. So we can get the diet right, the macronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and energy balance correct with good hydration, then actually, in the vast majority of cases, supplements may well not be needed. So I'm now going to talk about the three macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat, in just a little bit more detail. So if I could have the next slide, please, Leo. Carbohydrate. Carbs have had a pretty bad press, I think, over the last few years. But I think it's worth pointing out that when we do most moderate or high intensity exercise, the fuel that the body automatically uses is carbohydrate. We use carbohydrate for most of the exercise that we do. It is an important fuel for the body, and carbohydrate that we eat, whether it's through pasta or potatoes, is stored in the muscles and in the liver is a substance called glycogen, and it's that glycogen that the oxygen that I spoke about a few minutes ago combines with in the muscle to help in the production of energy. 1 gram of carbohydrate contains about 4 calories of energy. Just clock that figure, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment or two. Next slide, please, Leo. Recommendation for carbohydrate is 40 to 50% of calories from carbohydrate. Protein, the substance that our muscles are made of, again, 1 gram is 4 calories of energy. And the general recommendation is up to about 30% of energy that is consumed would come from protein. Next slide, please, Leo. And then fat. Whilst fat does contain many nutrients that are important for the body, you'll see that 1 gram of fat contains twice as many calories as a gram of either protein or carbohydrate. So when it comes to fat, we do need to be very careful, because if you have too much fat in your diet, then the energy balance will be distorted very quickly. It's very easy to take in more calories than are expended, and very quick and very easy to put on weight. Not only do you put on weight visibly with fat deposits being stored around the body, those fat deposits can also build up within the arteries where oxygen is being transported in the blood. That can raise blood pressure and increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes. So that's why the recommendation is for only around 10% of total calories to come from fat. Next slide, please, Leo. I've mentioned the importance of fruit and vegetables. They provide the vitamins, the minerals that are needed to maintain health, and of course, very importantly as well, to sustain the immune system, which has never been more important as we've been in the COVID-19 era. So a good mix of fruit and vegetables within the diet, providing the body with the vitamins and minerals that it needs for health and well-being, is absolutely critical. And we know, as I say, that will help, not necessarily to really improve the immune system, but to sustain it and help to keep us healthy and in good shape. I'm now just going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and how exercise and particularly diet can help with COVID-19. I'm sure many of you have been concerned about your own personal health and well-being with COVID. What I would add, if you go on to the next slide, please, Leo, is that we know that exercise not only improves lung function, but exercise will help us to get oxygen from the lungs to where it is needed in the muscles. I spoke about that 3 mils of oxygen per kilogram of body weight lower limit. If we can ensure that our bodies or our lungs can continue to transport that amount of oxygen to the body, then we'll have a good chance of staying healthy and staying alive. We know, not just with the research that we've done at Kingston, but through huge amounts of research that have been done for many, many years, that exercise will improve lung function. It will create more alveoli, it will open up the lungs, it will improve that oxygen transport capacity, and mean that you are better protected if a respiratory virus comes along and starts to attack your lungs. Far better to start with a high base of oxygen transport than from a low base. So I am absolutely convinced that exercise will improve lung function, will improve oxygen transport capacity, and help to ensure that you have a better chance of combating a respiratory virus. If you move on to the next slide, please, Leo. I'm conscious I've got 3 or 4 minutes to go. We also know from numerous studies that exercise will boost and maintain the immune system. Without any shadow of a doubt, that is the case. There have been lots of studies that have shown that that is true. So again, regular exercise, which can help to boost and maintain the immune system, combined with a good diet, does give you the best chance of protection against a respiratory virus such as COVID-19. Next slide, please, Leo. As well, as I've already said a few moments ago, poor nutrition will very quickly and very easily cause weight gain, cause body weight to increase. That in itself puts more strain on the heart and on the lungs. It causes respiratory stress. It puts you in a far lesser ability to combat the ravages of a respiratory virus. So again, I'm absolutely certain that healthy eating and exercise that maintain good body weight will help in protection against a respiratory virus. Next slide, please, Leo. Really, in summary, healthy nutrition will sustain body weight and help to sustain and maintain the immune system. That has to be good for people with sarcoidosis. It has to be critical. It's also important, as I say, in the current COVID-19 climate. So for me, if we can go on to the final slide, Leo, our research has shown that the combination of exercise and nutrition genuinely has lifestyle and medical benefits for anyone with sarcoidosis. It can certainly reverse many of the physical symptoms associated with sarcoidosis. It is, in a sense, a non-invasive treatment for sarcoidosis. Getting your diet right, getting your nutrition right, and getting your exercise regime right is, of course, something that I've grown up with people without sarcoidosis. I believe that our research has shown that for people with sarcoidosis, it's even more important. And I'm absolutely certain that exercise and nutrition do have a really key role to play in the management of sarcoidosis in the future. So if I could just go to my final slide. Thank you, Leo, for supporting the talk very well there. Looking forward to the panel discussion. I would add that I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis back in 2011. I've still maintained exercise as a very important part of my lifestyle. Since being diagnosed, I've run, I think it's 8 London marathons. That takes me up to 20 in total. I still exercise regularly. I still try and eat healthily because I am absolutely convinced, as both somebody with sarcoidosis and as a professor of sport and exercise science, that good exercise, good lifestyle and good nutrition really can help in the management of sarcoidosis. I've been fortunate to have been under the care and supervision of Dr. Kidd for I think the last 3 or 4 years. I'm certainly not going to let it stop me. I'm determined that through regular exercise I can keep my heart, lungs, nerves and muscles in as good a condition as possible, and very much believe, as I said this afternoon, that exercise can have a role to play in the treatment and management of sarcoidosis. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion and the question and answer session later on today. Thank you. Back to you, Leah and Jackie.